love going to Broadway shows, but can't go now because Broadway's closed. Join tour guide Tim and Belasco too as they bring Broadway history to you. Grab your Broadway passport for what's in store on your virtual Broadway tour.
Of the 41 Broadway theaters, only one lies outside of the confines of the Theater District, isolated at Lincoln Center, 15 blocks north of Times Square, the Vivian Beaumont. Opening in 1965 and named for arts philanthropist Vivian Beaumont Allen, heiress to the May department store company, the theater was part of the controversial Lincoln Square Renewal Project. By the early 1900s, Lincoln Square was considered to be a rough neighborhood. By 1950, the San Juan Hills section of the area had developed into a robust African-American neighborhood, overcrowded with tenement buildings and full of violent clashes with the nearby Irish community of Hell's Kitchen. Enter real estate developer Robert Moses. Spearheading the mayor's committee on slum clearance, he was known to rule with blunt force. After officially declaring San Juan Hill a slum, 7,000 families and 800 businesses were displaced in favor of building a massive arts conglomeration. With the Metropolitan Opera looking for a new home after their Rockefeller Center plans fell apart in 1929, and the New York Philharmonic also looking to put down roots, ground was broken by President Dwight D. Eisenhower on the new Lincoln Center. With all buildings cleared and a huge hole carved into the earth, construction of Lincoln Center had begun. One by one, the theaters of Lincoln Center began to rise into the sky. First, the New York Philharmonic Hall, now David Geffen Hall. Then, the New York State Theater for New York City Ballet, now the David H. Koch Theater, followed by the Vivian Beaumont Theater. The Beaumont was designed by architect Eero Saarinen, a Finnish-American, perhaps best known for designing the Gateway Arch in St. Louis, among many other notable landmarks. He outfitted the exterior of the theater in travertine tile for a modern look that fit the aesthetic of the neighboring arts institutions. On the interior, he collaborated with noted set designer Joe Milesiner to build a lavish, modern playing space that could be converted from a traditional proscenium design to a thrust stage, which is how it's used today, as the mechanics never actually worked. Abandoning the outdated configuration of dressing rooms being stacked vertically like most other Broadway theaters, all the dressing rooms are on one level. Sadly, the theater's female namesake never got to see her name in lights. After contributing $3 million to the creation of the theater, Vivian Beaumont died 3 years before it was finished. When the Beaumont first opened in 1965, it was run as a repertory company similar to the institutional National Theatre in London. And while many different artistic directors took up the reins over the first handful of years, including Elia Kazan and Joseph Papp, ultimately none were successful. By 1978, the theater had fallen on hard times and was empty for months. What the theater needed was a fresh look at its modern, unique, and challenging open design. Enter Executive Director Bernard Gersten and Artistic Director Andre Bishop. They looked at the theater as a tough nut to crack, and utilizing innovative directors, they were able to build a subscription audience with a mix of lavish productions. One such director was Bartlett Sher, who made his Vivian Beaumont and Broadway debut with The Light in the Piazza in 2005. He would return to the Beaumont again and again, consistently creating bold, expansive productions that managed to fill the large theater, finding great success with revivals of classic musicals, including South Pacific in 2008, The King and I in 2015, and My Fair Lady in 2018. By embracing the staggering depth of the Beaumont, the deepest stage on Broadway, to present mammoth productions, he was able to turn what had been the theater's Achilles heel into its biggest asset, setting an example for directors of future generations to follow. Female names figure prominently in the neon marquees in the courtyard of the theater. One level below the Beaumont is the off-Broadway Newhouse Theater, which opened in 1967 as the Forum, shortly after the Beaumont above. In 1973, it was renamed for arts philanthropist Mitzi Newhouse, who contributed $1 million when the theater fell in hard times. In 2010, Lincoln Center was looking to expand to provide more playing space opportunities for their stable of artists they were cultivating. After surveying the group about where they would most like a new theater built in New York City, the response was overwhelming. They wanted to be on site at Lincoln Center with all the other theaters. The problem? There wasn't any room. With creative architect Hugh Hardy at the helm, it was decided a new off-Broadway theater would open on the roof of the Beaumont. The Clairtau, as it was officially called when it opened in 2012, is a 100-seat intimate theater showcasing the LCT3 initiative, which produces work by emerging playwrights, directors, and designers. And with Clairtau's name on the marquee, a trifecta of female-named theaters balances the scales at Lincoln Center amid the historically male-dominated marquee names. Hello! Happy Saturday! It's Saturday. Again, can you believe it? It is, I know I say this every week, but the time is flying. We are in a global pandemic, but a little Broadway magic is getting us through. A little virtual tour magic is getting us through. And here we are for another Saturday Noon on Broadway. As part of our Virtual Broadway series, every week we're coming to you live at noon on Saturday with someone who has worked at the theater we're featuring that week. And this week we are joined by the incredible, the funny, the hilarious Kelvin Moonlow from The King and I at the Vivian Beaumont Theater. For those that aren't familiar with me or Broadway Up Close, my name is Tim Dolan. I'm an actor and the owner of Broadway Up Close walking tours in New York City. For the past 11 years, we've hit the sidewalks of New York City telling the secrets, the history, the ghost stories, the fun facts of the 41 Broadway theaters. I have an entire team that I call my green team that are all actors and stage managers that are your windows and your eyes to the world of our insane theatrical lives. We have 5 exterior tours that we've been offering for the last 11 years. In October of 2019, we opened our first interior tour, which is inside the oldest Broadway theater, the Hudson Theater. It's been there for 118 years. For info on all of our tours, what we're doing now with socially distanced, masked exterior tours, we don't have our Hudson tour currently, but everything else is available. For info on all of that, you can head to our website at broadwayupclose.com. And then we opened a gift shop in the middle of Times Square. As if my life wasn't insane enough already, I said, I'll open a brick and mortar store. This will be so easy. And so in April of 2019, I opened this gift shop with our 6-foot-tall Broadway sign. And then because of COVID-19, of course, all of that is shut down. And so all of that is moved into our e-commerce store. So at the end, I'll give you a little discount code. We'll talk more about new upcoming things we have, in addition to a new virtual tour that we're launching on Tuesday. This world that we're living in, coming up on the 1-year anniversary of the shutdown, I say it so many times, but to me, as long as New York City is still standing, Broadway is still there. To me, they're synonymous. It never envisioned a world where I could walk to the theater district and the theaters would still be there, but there wouldn't be anyone inside and there wouldn't be any shows playing. And the marquees would essentially just be frozen in time as they were on March 12th, 2020. To me, it blows my mind every time I'm there, every time we do a tour, and I can't wait till the day everything's, for lack of a better word, unfrozen, and we get our lives back on track. So in the meantime, missing connecting with you guys, seeing you on tours, seeing friends in the neighborhood, on the way to auditions, on the way to work and shows, I thought, let's go online. So our Virtual Broadway Tour Series, I'm insane. I said, we'll do 1 theater a week. There's 41 Broadway theaters. It'll be 41 weeks, and that'll get us through. And so here we are, week 36. Can you believe it? The Vivian Beaumont. I hope you've enjoyed all the history, the fun facts this week, from the origins of San Juan Hill to the Lincoln Center complex that it is today. And then, of course, all of our famous females that are lined up at the Vivian Beaumont, the Mitzi Newhouse, and the Clairtau for a nice little female touch at Lincoln Center, which we enjoy. How's today going to work? For today's series, we'll learn all about Kelvin's theatrical journey, his time working on The King and I, in addition to the other incredible shows he has done. If you have any questions for him or me along the way, drop them in the comments. And for those that are watching us live, comment and let me know where you're watching from so we can see where our stories are going today. Are you ready? Are you excited? I am. Join me, without further ado, welcoming Broadway's Kelvin Moonlow.
Hi, everyone.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
So good. Happy Saturday. Thanks for doing this.
Saturday.
Where I know. Welcome to our. This is the little things I get excited about. The day that I remember the day.
Yeah.
Tell me where you are. Are you in New York City? Where are you in this?
I love my beautiful white wall behind me because I could be anywhere. But alas, I am in New York City.
Okay. Have you been? Did you stay here throughout all of the insanity of the whole thing?
Pretty much. We escaped for the holidays. My partner has a home in Chicago, so we dipped for November all the way until January. So we kind of dipped that time. So I guess not the entire time, but otherwise New York City right here.
And so like the full shutdown when everything first started, you were here for all of that. That's the only part I wasn't here. The first 7 weeks I dipped out.
I was here. All I remember was I was in Beetlejuice at the time.
Yeah.
And we just finished a 10-show week. It was insane. We were switching schedules. We're going to change for the spring. And I went home. And the next day I got a phone call and said, come and get whatever you need for the next 2 weeks. And that's been nearly a year at this point.
It's
crazy.
Yeah, it's really like those early moments of those where you're like even thinking like, well, 2 weeks. Well, what are we going to do for 2 weeks? What do you mean? And then now I think that it's, it's going to be a year and a half, probably, if not more. It's insane. It's really crazy.
Well, I certainly miss theater. I miss it a lot. I mean, it's something that it gives me a place to go, 6 days a week. I mean, 7 days a week on most weeks.
Yeah, especially at a 10-show week, which is, well, that's insane. We're going to talk more about Beetlejuice because I'm obsessed, and you in that where it was so good. So we'll get there. So tell us, for those who aren't lucky enough to know everything about your life, will you tell us where you grew up, where you're from, family life, when you first got exposed to theater, when that turned into like, I'm going to do that professionally, and essentially give us the mini Kelvin Moonlow version of you pre-New York City starting to audition and start your career.
You got it. Well, I am a New Yorker.
I grew up from here.
I'm from here. I spent the first portion of my life in Queens, Richmond Hill.
Okay.
And then we just moved right over the border of Nassau County and onto Long Island. That's where I finished high school.
Okay.
And then, so that's where I'm from. I'm a Long Island kid. I consider myself a Long Island kid, but otherwise I've kind of lived in New York City my entire life. Immediately after high school, I went back to NYU. I didn't want to go too far. Sure. So I've just kind of been in this city since forever. And so in high school,
in Long Island, since it's a rare thing in 36 interviews, I think so far, I don't know that we've had anyone else who's been like from here. So growing up with close proximity to the theater and starting this journey, did you go see a lot of shows? Was it an arts high school? Is your family a theater family?
Well, family wasn't a theater family. They had notoriously the only theater production my parents ever saw before I was around was The King and I with Yul Brynner. So just so you know, right?
Perfect.
Of course. Okay. The only thing they've ever seen. And then otherwise, so not a theater family so much, but it wasn't an arts high school either. But when I was in elementary school, they trucked all the 5th and 6th graders to go see the High School Musical. Sure. And that's where it all began. And of course, the first one I saw was Annie. And I said, well, when I get to high school, I'm going to do that. Like whatever the bunch of, 300, 400 5th grader and 6th graders were like clapping their faces off for, I want to be in front of that.
Yeah.
So that's how it all began. And then as far as proximity.
This first production of Annie, do you have vivid memories of it? I mean, 5th and 6th grade, you're what? You're 10, you're 11 years old. So you're remembering things at that point. But I'm always curious, the first moment that it's like, oh my God, that. Do you have vivid memories of this moment, or is it a broad stroke of, I just remember kind of falling in love in that moment?
I remember pretty much the entire thing. I remember the first and last names of the people who were cast in the high school production. Well, it became my beginning of my obsessions, right? My obsession with playbills, right? And just reading bios and everything. And I just remember, I could tell you like the full cast of the entire cast of the first cast of Rent I saw when I came to New York City, because I just used to study those things. And Saturdays were my day because of the proximity of Long Island to the city. I was able to come in, and we used to call it just a good old twofer, right? A twofer, you stand on the line for TKTS, and you would get a twofer. You would see 2 shows for the price of 1.
Yeah.
And it was something that I did. I think I started coming in with my friends by myself around like 16, 17 years old. And as many Saturdays as possible, you get on the Long Island Railroad, walk up from Penn Station to Times Square, pick up the 2 shows you're going to spend all day, and then watch 2 shows, get home.
Incredible. What a crazy, what a cool thing, tradition to have for yourself, and such great exposure to this life that you're about to live. That's very cool.
It was the best learning tool I could have ever had in my entire life, was to spend time in as many theaters as possible. Yeah. I mean, it's a strange addiction. It's a real addiction. I coveted those playbills. I mean, I'm sure I cost a lot of former productions of Broadway shows a little extra money with all the extra stacks of playbills I stole. But, you know,
you're like, here he comes. It must be Saturday. Here comes
Long Island. Just pretty much that's me.
Full of playbills. You're like,
oh yeah. I mean, I still think I carry that a little bit, where I'm like, you know, we'll go see a play, and I'll go, honey, grab one more, just grab 1 or 2 more. I don't know. One day I'll like do like decoupage and the entire wall with like playbills, or I don't know.
And then you just open your closet. And you're like, well, how did he die? You're like, well just.
And I would like to say that's an exaggeration, and that's as far as it goes.
Okay, great. Okay, so then NYU comes into your life. You get into NYU for musical theater?
I do vocal performance for musical theater. Yep. Okay.
Great.
And I'm studying music, and I'm studying, you know, theater, drama, dance, as much as I possibly can. Sure. And still, you know, we're getting an influx of amazing artists that are working, you know, 40, 50 blocks up the street to come down and talk to us. You know, being able to feel the environment of being in New York City, you know, stealing your classmates, and, you know, part of your homework assignment was go see a Broadway show and write me a 1-page report. And I said, no problem. That sounds like a dream. Okay. And, you know, the whole student rush lines and the excitement of that all, and then being able to connect with people. I loved stage dooring at that time. I'm still a huge fan of stage dooring. You know, it was just a magical experience. I knew this is the center of musical theater. This is the center of Broadway. It's where everything is born. And I thought, what a better place to go to school. My bank account didn't think so much of it, but you know,
that's student rush helps a little bit with that. Yeah. So I'm obsessed. You're all in. You're into this. You're like me. I see a lot of myself in you. I was the same. I'm just like, all in. Let's go.
I would love to pretend that I love musical theater less, but I just it's just a lie. Yeah. It's an obsession, so it's fine.
Yep. So then that obsession, okay, so you finish NYU, you find yourself more at this point in life, or maybe still, do you find yourself as singer, actor, dancer? Do you lean towards your vocal performance? So I'm thinking maybe vocal acting is your focus, but you also dance. Where do you live in that world?
Where I live in that world, and every choreographer that I've ever worked with, I just will continue the apology train. I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't know. They always say you have to be a triple threat to be on Broadway. I'll just admit that, you know, I'm a living example of you don't. So, because dance was not something that I studied, and I regret. I regret 2 things. If there are any kids out there watching at all, I regret not taking piano, and I regret not dancing. Yeah. But I came to it from, believe it or not, my first love in the musical theater, and I wanted to do that as a job, was to be in the pit, to play as an instrumentalist. I was doing that all through high school. That's something I really thought I was going to do. But, you know, when you're a boy that knows music and has any kind of singing voice in a high school program, they snatch you and they put you in that show. And then once you're on the stage, you get a different kind of bug. And I was like, well, I'll be doing that. But yeah, kind of been all in with the whole thing. I'm just a little bit obsessed with musical theater completely. I don't know what to do with myself otherwise.
Incredible. So then, you don't have a big dance bag, but your vocal book is thick, and you start auditioning. Did you audition? I know at NYU, as most New York schools, they don't want you to audition until you're out of the program and fully trained. Did you?
They don't want you to do a lot of things, but I did them anyway.
Correct.
my very first Broadway audition ever. I remember taking a cab because I didn't know my way around New York City. Right, was for the Roundabout Theater's revival of Pacific Overtures.
Sure, I saw it.
Many years ago.
Yeah.
And I got in to the audition, and I was like, well, I'm going to be on Broadway this year. I just showed up to the city freshman year. I guess this is going to happen. I got a call back. I don't know how. This is very strange. I show up at, I don't know if you know Paul Ford, who plays piano for Sondheim all the time. I show up at his apartment. And this is when they're handing out the cassette tapes, right? You have to pick up
yes.
You have to pick up the cassette tape in a manila envelope in front of some agent's office to get it together. And, if you're looking for Pacific Overtures, you have to go to the library to find the sheet music. There's no online stuff.
Wow.
And of course, that doesn't work out. And I'm like, well, that's not the way I was supposed to work. I was supposed to be 18, come to New York City, kind of use a way of going to college just as a reason to audition for Broadway and be on Broadway before I'm ever finished with college.
Sure.
That didn't happen.
Sure.
Did finish college, and the first show I booked out of school was the international tour of The King and I.
Come on.
And it was, and by this point, it was second semester, senior year. So it was going to be after school was done, and I would go on my first tour.
Okay.
I think graduation day comes around, and I get a phone call and says the tour has been delayed by X amount of months.
Sure.
And, that's a whole drama we can get into later as to why that happened, but it didn't happen.
Okay.
It didn't go out. No, well, it happened much, much later, but by that point I was doing other things.
Okay.
But as far as The King goes, I thought to myself, I'm never, ever, ever going to do this show. It just doesn't seem like it's in the cards. The one time I somehow got in the show, and that's not the first time I auditioned with King and I auditioned as a child for the Golden Revival with Donna Murphy. These are things that, and I didn't get it then. And then at that point, I never saw myself as anybody in the show. I couldn't really dance the show. That ballet, the Jerome Robbins ballet, is so beautiful. It's so specific. The way the women's hands curl when they're doing it, I can't do that. It's fine, but I was just like, if I don't get the role of Loon's Hot at some point or a cover, I'm never going to do the show, right? And so that kind of escaped my cancellation of that.
You let the dream go in that instance. Is there any, because your family, the only thing they have seen prior to all this is The King and I with Yul Brynner, is there any sense from your family of a conversation with your family about this show specifically, because it feels like it's connected to your family somehow?
Oh, absolutely. Well, because that's the only thing they can reference at this point, they've seen a handful of musicals. I've been in them. And other than that, they like musicals. They know. So either they were really excited that I was going to be in The King and I or The Sound of Music. Sound of Music didn't seem as viable to be in as often. I did do it twice in high school, so just so you know, but which is hilarious.
Who did you play?
I played Max Detweiler twice. Of
course you did. It's only time before the next revival comes and we see you playing Max on the Broadway.
One a day that would be. But yeah, there's pressure. That's the thing that they love the most. They were really charmed by the story, and they have great memories associated with those songs, with that production. And so I felt like I owed it to them at some point to do it in my life.
Right.
Some point. That some point didn't come for another 9 years later.
Crazy.
Oh my gosh. Wait, that's a lie. I did do it one more time before that. I totally forgot. Forgot because it's a blip. Okay. It's not a blip because it's a huge production and it's amazing. It was at Kansas City Starlight.
It ran for like 4 minutes because those shows run. Right.
It was the whole contract was a total of 3 weeks, right? But we did it with Lou Diamond Phillips and as Anna. I kid you not, one of the most phenomenal things I've ever seen. I will always love Kelly O'Hara. She's my Anna forever. But for 3 weeks and 3 weeks only, I saw Rachel Bay Jones do the role.
Whoa.
It was sensational.
What?
Rachel Bay Jones was phenomenal. She was absolutely phenomenal. I mean, both women are just, and what she could come up with in 3 weeks was sensational to me. find it on the dark interweb.
Yeah,
somewhere.
we're gonna have to go to the deep web, I think, for that for that bootleg from Kansas. You know, some kid in the back just with his video camera.
It would have been me.
Correct.
It would have been me.
It was
I weren't on the stage.
Right.
Yeah, it was me.
Yeah, it's a From the Wing stage right bootleg. Yes.
Sure.
Well, wait. Look at this. Natalie Weaver says, I was in the audience for your Starlight production. Wonderful show. Oh,
I mean,
my God.
Natalie, wasn't it just, it was spectacular. They did the original staging, the original choreography. So you can stage that show in 3 weeks. I mean, for sure, I know Lou and Rachel had been working for an extensive amount of time before because it's a huge show, right? Yeah. But a lot of the dancers, it's canon. It's canon for, especially if you're an Asian performer, that if you're a dancer, you can do several of the tracks in that ballet, and it's easily picked up. I was in the ballet. I end up they always call me Big Mountain. There's one track, which Big Mountain is a lifter. He basically like lifts everybody. So I said my job is just carry smaller Asians on my back whenever I can. That's my track in the King Guy.
That's, I think, your track in life is what it feels like.
Yeah.
It's a role you've taken to very well.
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
This is better than I ever thought this was ever going to go. Okay, so let's put a pin in the fact that you're obviously, why we're here is you do it at the Vivian Beaumont. It's our Vivian Beaumont. Yes. So we'll get there. But in between Lou Diamond Phillips and Kelly O'Hara is other Broadway shows. You make your Broadway debut in
Sideshow.
And how I loved it. It was so good. Your costume and
thanks.
It was incredible. Tell me everything about it, because it was Bill Condon, right? Who was in charge of putting this whole thing together?
Bill Condon of Movie Chicago and Dreamgirls and Beauty and the Beast. One of my favorite directors I've ever worked with. Bill decided Bill, who is also just as much as a musical theater nerd as anyone, has always wanted to direct a Broadway musical. He's basically directed some of the greatest movie musicals at this point, right? And so he wanted to do on stage. Sideshow is something that I, kind of stumbled across a couple songs way back in the day, and I said, this show's awesome. I would love to audition for the show. They were casting. They were looking for strange people who were on the fringe of, because that was kind of my journey. Was I didn't really fit into the mold of what the musical theater performer was when I got out of school. I didn't really dance that much. My voice type was, I'm more of a legit singer, so a lot of things were moving towards the more contemporary, which I can do as well, but it just wasn't quite in my wheelhouse at that time.
Sure.
And so they were looking for, they went to casting and said, find me the people who, aren't working all the time, where the stranger they are, the weirder their dark energy or whatever that is, call them in, bring them in, and let's see if we can work with them. Audition for the show. We did 2 out-of-town tryouts, one in La Jolla and one at the Kennedy Center, which was incredible. And it was just the experience I always wanted. And they said, well, after we finished the Kennedy Center, it was the strangest farewell send-off at the end of the Kennedy Center. It was the summer, and they said, okay, everybody, well, thank you. They gathered everybody in a room, and they said, everybody, thank you so much for your time. We really love this piece, and basically have a nice summer. And we're like, are we going to Broadway? This is my only thing I've ever cared about. I want to go. Like, what are we going to do? What's going to happen? And it was, I think several weeks have passed, nearly 2 months have passed. I was downtown reconnecting with Kayala Settle. I don't know if you know Kayala Settle from Great Showman, Broadway legend, and my friend Javier Ignacio, who was also in Sideshow. And we were just hanging out downtown, and Kayala, because she was in Sideshow in La Jolla playing the fortune teller before the awesome Charity Dawson.
I was going to say, I was like, I didn't realize that was her. Was it her? It wasn't. Okay.
She's a busy lady. She booked Madame Thenardier, and so she ended up not being able to do it. Timing. Right. We get the phone call saying we're going to Broadway, and the rest is history.
And do you remember that first moment? Had you seen shows at the St. James on your Saturday 2 for trips prior to performing on stage?
The St. James was probably, first of all, Tim, I just love Broadway theaters. I'm specifically in love with every single one of them. I have a love affair with each one. Don't tell the other one about why I'm in love with the other one.
They're all your favorite children.
They're all my favorite. But the St. James will always be my favorite, A, because it's where I made my Broadway debut. But believe it or not, that's my second job at the St. James. My first job at the St. James was I was an usher at the St. James for years.
What?
Years. When I was in college, I thought the best job that I could ever have was to become a Broadway usher. And so I worked for the Drew Jampson Company as a substitute usher. I worked through all the 5 theaters that they have all the time. But, you know, I can remember doing like my calculus homework in the balcony, watching the producers night after night, like seating the people, stepping out, doing some homework, picking my favorite numbers, walking back into the theater, sitting on the steps, watching the whole thing. And then just night after night, it was training from what I'm doing during the school day, and also being able to do some work and getting paid to see a show. And I was seeing tons. That was a new kind of education for me, because it showed like you can see the choices that the actors are making night to night, what they actually had to go through to sustain 8 shows a week. It's been great. So being there with those ushers.
And then you come from that staircase with your book in the back, and then you're stage in your half man, half woman. Oh my gosh, man.
It's the first, when we came in to load in for tech, the first place I went was I did the long trek up to the balcony, and I sat there and I watched them loading in the set for Sideshow. I mean, the set was loading up, but I saw them putting it together, and just went full circle moment. And my other favorite moment ends up being that when the show finally started previews, I walked into the house and there were all my old friends, you know, the house staff that I had just grown up with, and they were ready for me. I was like, I was ready to be like, hey, do you guys remember me? Like, it's been a little while. And, you know, they were just like, we were waiting for you. Where have you been? It's been, you know, it's, I've got a lot of friends there still, and they're just the best of the best of the best. My favorite thing as a front of the house staff back in the day used to be the great artists that would just stop by in the front, you know, and just kind of show you that it is like one entire building, one entire community that works together and does it all together. Like some of the greats were, I mean, my favorite drive-by of just graciousness is Christine Ebersole. I was at the Walter Kerr, and Christine Ebersole just came. She just would come to the house sometimes and just talk to people. I was like, I will be that.
Yeah.
It's not, and it wasn't like, and it's not like I will grace the people with my appearance. That's not it at all. It was just like, I want to be in the front of the house and just taking up space, because this is our house, you know, this is our theater right now. And it was.
And that curtain line, that it in many ways, it can feel, unless you kind of just put yourself out there and you're like, no, we're all doing this. It can feel like I come in this door, I go in the back, you come in the front, you hand out, and we don't ever interact. And you have that half hour when you're logging in, they're getting their playbill stuffed. It's that connective tissue that, if you don't, and I don't think a lot of actors do.
No,
you know,
and you don't I think that if there are future actors out there who want to be actors, you have to know how important that front of house staff is, because they are your first impression of you. So, you know, and if they're your friends, I've led an applause or two as an usher on nights that I felt like, excuse me, that's Roger Bart on the stage. We're gonna clap tonight, everyone.
Yeah.
You know, so maybe there's an usher or two that I've made friends with in the shows that I've been in, where I was like, help me.
Correct.
Just start.
Just will you please?
just lead with the chuckle, or lead with just help me.
Correct.
On a Saturday matinee, I'll take anything.
I'll take it all. I'll take any help. So Sideshow, I remember I had done a show with Con O'Shea Creel, who played. Who I love, has my heart. The moment I met him, I was like, "You're a star. You're going to take over." Con. And so I had seen the show, I think towards the end of the run, and I think Con had a baby on the way or something. And I said, "The show is not really selling well. How's it going?" And he said, "You know, the producers have said we're going to just stay open." And then a week later, he said, "No, we're closing, and another show wants it. I think something rotten or something."
Well, the producers were all in. We had great producers on Sideshow, and I don't believe it was something rotten. I think there was maybe the Disney contract had began at that time.
Okay.
And then that took longer. But regardless, the show wasn't doing well financially. And the St. James is a large space. And, sometimes that's the way the cookie crumbles.
Yeah.
I find that when a show is not doing well on Broadway, which is a majority of the shows, to be honest, so there's no shame in that, right? It's bittersweet, and it's bitter because obviously you want the show to run as long as possible. The way that I find a little bit of the sweetness is it forges a really strong family tie when you're like, oh my gosh, this ship is sinking. We have to hold on to each other, and you start to. And when you have the writing on the wall, as early as it was for Sideshow, you say to yourself, well, I'm going to cherish every single moment I have with this thing, because you don't know when it's, and there were the conversations with our producers who were very candid with us and very open with us, thankfully, that saying like, this could be any moment. And so just because it could be every moment, you first of all, you called every friend, you said, listen, don't wait, get here now, know? And second of all is when you're on stage, you just do it to your best ability, and you try to remember everything, and you try to hold on, because it's not lasting. Frankly, even if you are in a hit show, hold on. Theater ain't lasting. These are the live moments that you should cherish every day. I have to this is not a lecture. I have to remind myself that every time. I'm thankful and grateful and lucky enough to be in anything.
Yeah. And I think on the other side of this, I think that will be the undercurrent of everything, because we've now all just gone probably a year and a half without any theatricality and community and connection with other people in a communal space. So
I'm hoping that's the silver lining. Yeah.
Yeah. I think of course, the first night back, right, will be insane.
I will be there. If I'm not on a stage, I will be in a house. You cannot, there's not a possible way. There's nothing I could be doing that will prevent me from being on the first night when this whole thing opens up.
Yeah, it's that it'll be a moment, I think, that will probably be unprecedented. I don't think it'll ever happen again. Hopefully it'll never happen again.
Hopefully, yeah.
And the energy, I think, is going to be, unreal. Okay, so it's going well. Sideshow closes. That's where King and I comes into your life?
Ooh, okay. So here's where King and I comes into my life.
Yeah.
King and I comes in my life actually several months earlier. I was in a show downtown in the Public Theater called Here Lies Love.
And someone just commented, so while you're talking about this, Tammy Cole Butler says, hello from Salt Lake City. We loved you in Here Lies Love. Did the audience inspire your performance, or was it distracting? So as you talk about this moment of your life, shout out to Tammy.
Hi, Tammy. I know Tammy from the American Idiot Tour too, just seeing her all around. I like, because I can see from the picture. And well, Here Lies Love was an interactive experience. And the whole point was to commune with the audience and be with them and dance with them and talk to them. My whole job was to corral them as the DJ in this like disco experience. So of course it inspired that. And it was kind of a super amazing acting experience too, to be that close. So you really couldn't just fake it, right? You have to be really with somebody. And kind of a small, intimate space. And also, it was kind of my first foray into the New York theater scene. And it was kind of a big debut, gave me a lot of confidence to move forward. By the time Here Lies Love happened, I was going back and forth between the out-of-town tryouts of Here Lies Love. And I went from DC, it was bookended by Here Lies Love. We reopened at the Public Theater, and I went back to the Public Theater because the Public was amazing, gave me time off to do it, right?
Wow.
Came back. About 6 weeks later, I get the phone call saying we're going to Broadway for Sideshow. And then I had to put in my notice for Here Lies Love. I was working like a crazy person. I don't know how I got so lucky. And here's where the luck continues. So in the middle of Here Lies Love, I'm auditioning The King and I said, well, by this point, it's 10 years later. And I'm just like, I don't know. It's not my show. They never want me. I don't want to do it. Yeah. Like, it's not like I don't want to do it. I just don't know what it's going to offer me. Right. And I auditioned. I auditioned for the show, and I get a phone call. It's Bart. And like, this is the day of my audition. He calls me. He's like, hey, I need a favor. I was just like, hey, I just met you. I don't want a favor. He's like, so we're doing a big table read of the show. We're integrating some new material, some new old material. The archives of Rodgers and Hammerstein was giving them the books to say, hey, listen, if there's any line that they ever wrote, you can use it, you know. And they wanted to interpolate some more political commentary into the show that was from cut dialogue, and they had every draft, right?
Wow.
But they wanted to do the table. We had Ken Watanabe at the table, Kelly O'Hara, and a bunch of, you know, 4 or 5 other actors that were just reading for part. It was an extended audition in a certain way. They had me read for Lunta. And that was that. That was a week, right? Just do the table reads. And I'm telling you, it was the coolest experience. Just watch. Sometimes it would just be handwriting of lyrics or handwriting of lines. And we ended up using that because they had everything saved. It's really well documented, and Lincoln Center has access to it all.
Wow.
And so that happened. Didn't hear anything, right?
Okay.
I've sideshows and rehearsals, and in the middle of rehearsal for my very first Broadway show, I sit down and I pick up a phone call from my agent and said, "You ready for this? When it rains, it pours. We haven't even finished our first week of rehearsal of Sideshow. I had booked The King and I." Huge emotional drama, huge moral dilemma of, I love this show. I just got in this thing. How can I possibly commit?
Right.
Maybe I can fend, but you know, writing's on the wall. Will Sideshow go up? Will it or not? I don't know. Right. Yeah. And you know, conversations with a lot of different people said, you know what? I'm not committing to The King and I. If it's supposed to happen, it's supposed to happen. Can we tell the producers at Lincoln Center, give me a minute, you know, give me a minute to think about what it was. It was Ensemble. It was the understudy Lunta. I was totally happy with that. And, you know, lo and behold, I said, they're holding. The show announced it's closing. My agent called Lincoln Center the next day and they said, yep, his spot's still open. Take 3 weeks off. Take 3 weeks off after you close and we'll see you uptown.
Gosh, man, what the timing of life when it works out. It is such a beautiful thing that feels whether you believe in that or not. It feels so. I love when it works out perfect like that because
it works out really nicely. But it was extremely tense at the moment because I was so conflicted. Because I loved what I was doing so much, and I just, you know, it was the unknown. Now, it was one of the greatest experiences of my life to go do that production of The King and I.
Yeah.
So I'm glad it kind of all worked out.
Tom has a question. We love Tom, and it's a really great question about your time in The King and I. It's huge, so it'll just be eyebrows while we read it. Hi, Kelvin. You're an amazing talent, but I always associate you first with your compassionate post to the mom who brought her autistic child to The King and I. What steps does the theater industry need to take to make theater more inclusive and accessible to all theater fans? Did SpongeBob do sensory sensitive performances? So, as we deconstruct this multi-layered question, talk to us first. I remember this post. I have to be honest, until Tom asked this question, I forgot that was you who wrote the post. Because I still don't, you know, this is the most I'm learning about you in your life, which I love. So talk to us about this moment. What happened? Tell us everything.
So in the ensemble, you get a lot of time in The King and I just bowing on stage and paying attention and trying to keep yourself, you know, alert and paying attention. But, you know, the nights pass by and the show's long. But this happened particularly, I was also in charge of the whip. You know, there's a scene, you know, spoiler alert. Honestly, it's way too long for you not to know The King and I. Sorry, that was a read.
You have to leave.
Yeah. But there's a point in which Tup Tim is accused of betraying the king and they're going to whip her. And then I come in as one of the guards that is in control of the whip. It's a loud sound, you know, and it elicits an experience in the audience. Right. And on this particular night, I had noticed that there was a young man who was autistic, just little tiny yelps, little tiny sounds, which was just like, I just found it in the audience, nothing too disturbing, right?
Yeah.
But at some point, that particular whipping scene is very disturbing, you know, and it caused an emotional reaction in him. And then there was a moment in which the audience kind of reacted not so greatly to the mother and the child. And I came off the stage and I thought to myself, you know what? I don't have much experience with with that particular community, but I think that everybody, when they go to the theater, their best bet and what they want in life is to have a good experience. And they weren't there to try to ruin anybody's experience. They weren't trying to be selfish. You don't know somebody else's life and what they're going through. Frankly, I to this day don't know that much more than what I saw. But can we all just chill out for a second? Can we just remember why we come to the theater? It's not supposed to be perfect. It's supposed to have, you're supposed to have a human experience with the people that you sit in the room with. The audience member next to you crunching on those M&Ms is just as much of the performance you're seeing that day as anything else. It's just, that's why we're doing it. You know, maybe that's not the most convenient thing for you that day, but it's just, we sit in the dark with other human beings to take in this fantasy, and real life, when that's happening, we should take a little bit more time, a little bit more compassion to think about those things. I ended up writing something on the internet. It was not supposed to be for the entire world. I don't know how it happened. It kind of happened between the first show and the second show. And then the next morning, the New York Times had called. I don't know how that happened. But you know, the internet's strange, and it has gotten even stranger since that time. So now I believe it, right?
Yeah.
But just to answer that question, Tom, about like what can the theater community do to be more inclusive, I am a very strong component. I have been before that moment and to this day, that I think anybody who wants to do theater should be able to do theater. Anybody who wants to enjoy theater should be able to enjoy theater. Yeah. If there's a hole that we have identified in what we're creating theatrically in the New York theater community, we should address that. And honestly, there's amazing organizations. For example, TDF does these sensory sensitive performances, and they rent out the whole entire theater. They only sell tickets to entire families with people who need this special performance. And they turn up the lights, they dim the sound a little bit. There are volunteers all up and down this aisle. It was super important that Lincoln Center did it for the first time in many, many, many years with The King and I. It happened to be the week after I left the show, but it was a nice experience for me to come and see the show. I definitely snuck in, to just be able to take in the audience and saw how important it was. I could not have been more proud of my castmates at the time. This is an amazing experience. They don't usually get to have all the shows. Right. Wicked, Lion King, they've been around for, Disney does a great job with it because they've been around long enough that they can create these sensory sensitive performances. Right. But for new shows, like King and I only ran a year and a half, for them to be able to take one night and dedicate it towards these families and be able to do that was incredible. Yeah. And I've been lucky enough to have that kind of follow my career. We did one with Spongebob Squarepants. I didn't think it was possible with the amount of confetti and this and that we did. And it's just one of those performances where you just go, well, this is why we do theater, right? We do theater because instead you could not have had an audience that was more grateful and captivated by what you're doing, because when something's scarce to you, an opportunity like that, you cherish it a little bit more. We cherished it as performers for this audience, and that's going to be my goal. And the more theater that I do, I'm always going to examine the accessibility points for very diverse audiences of all different kinds of backgrounds.
Sure. Then, so on the heel, I love that. Beautiful and well stated. On the heels of that, on stage as Asian American, do you feel, because we're in this moment in this pandemic of people of color and really looking at the inequities also on stage as opposed to just the audience? So do you feel in your career that being Asian American has helped, has hurt? Has it? What has been your experience in your narrative?
Well, I find that being Asian American, it's a unique experience, right? It's a unique experience as being an actor. I can't say it's better or worse. I can't say if for me, it's completely a part of my being. It's just a part of my identity. I'm not, I can be sure we can go into huge therapy, Tim. We can go back into the recesses of my childhood of identity issues. But the thing is, by the time I was hitting the stage in New York, I had claimed that identity of who I am and just being like, listen, this is what makes me special. And even if it doesn't make me special, it's just what I am. Right. Yeah. And I have to use that to the best of my ability. There's nothing more that I like than when I jump into a cast with an all Asian cast, and they go, this is rare, this is awesome, this is this kind of home background, a whole show surrounded like The King and I, like Here Lies Love. Very few experiences are like that. Then you're like, this is so amazing. And those opportunities might not have been afforded to me if I weren't Asian. And so I'm always going to say that my Asian American background is always a plus. And it served me well. And I hope that, there's a lot of my being, a lot of my personality and who I am and what I want to represent. The Asian community is definitely one of them. And I've been very lucky to be able to do so many projects.
That's incredible. Incredible. I would be remiss if we didn't talk about both SpongeBob SquarePants and Beetlejuice, because to me, you were such a unique addition, excuse me, to both casts. And you stuck out like a sore thumb in the best way possible. My favorite type of sore thumb, where I don't know you that well, but it's every time I see you in a show, honestly, from Sideshow on, it's always what's going on over there. And then, by the time you get to Beetlejuice, of course, you're front and center and you're playing one of these supporting characters. And so, of course, we're looking at you. But talk to me about your journey with both of those shows and playing these unique characters and where you fit into all of that.
I mean, SpongeBob just hit at a point where I just grew up. This is what I'd be on. I'd be up on a Saturday morning and I'd be watching cartoons. That's just my thing, right? Yeah. I'm a cartoon watching, video game playing, Muppet sounding loser. That's what I like. It's not loser, but I like making sounds and character voices. And so this audition was the Tina Landau audition, the director of SpongeBob. She's sensational. If you get a chance to audition for her, you have to be prepared to go on this amazing ride, right? She's going to ask you for every tool, every character, anything you could do. And I think the people who win the day are just like, yeah, I've got that. Like, you got a crab voice? Yeah, I got that. Yeah. Like, can you act like Kelp for the next hour? Sure. Like anything you want, but like have fun, but like genuinely have the passion of like, this is fun, So that just kind of came up in a place. An amazing show, just a wonderful journey. We did it out of town in Chicago. That's why I left The King and I wouldn't have left early if it wasn't. We did it at the out of town of Chicago, and then that became a whole year before we got to Broadway too. So I was lucky enough to do Pacific Overtures downtown here with Classic Stage in the middle of that, and then SpongeBob happened. That was a decent journey, not as long as you wanted it to be.
Sure.
And
I loved it. I loved every minute of it.
It was so fun. It was
the most fun I've ever had in a theater from start to finish. Every single person on that stage, you're like, what a crazy catch-all of weird, incredible, talented people that are all in one show in crazy costumes. Yeah. It was unbelievable.
It was sensational. And honestly, if there's a pandemic release musical that you can watch right now, we did do a live on stage version of the show that is on Nickelodeon. And I think it's available on Amazon. I am not an advertisement for it. I'm just saying that if you want if you want a departure from this moment, I weirdly think that musical is extremely underrated and extremely timely to what we're dealing with right now.
And when he didn't win the Tony Award, awards, whatever. But to me, you see so many shows after living here and you walk out sometime of a theater and you're like, that is a Tony Award winning performance. That just give it to him. And when he didn't, I was like, what? Nothing. I don't understand anything. That is
Ethan's theater is the Tony Award winner in my heart, so don't worry about that. He has it for me.
Okay, good. And then Beetlejuice. How does this come about? Were you involved through the whole thing?
Not at all.
No. Okay.
I'm literally the last person added on to Beetlejuice. The last person.
Wow.
This story becomes a little bit infamous in a way because that day, Broadway closing day, they sat us down in the green room and they said, hey, listen, we're closing on this date. We had 6 weeks, which was a beautiful gift to be, I feel like that's the entire run of Sideshow. You have 6 more weeks of SpongeBob. Good luck, everyone. Thank you. We tried our best, right? And we'll see if there's another life somewhere else, which we did the movie, which is great.
Yeah, sure.
I had a somber moment minute with my cast. And then I walked to my dressing room, and a couple weeks prior, they had checked my availability for Beetlejuice to be like, is he interested in auditioning? And I called my agent and I said, yo, we're closing. Call Beetlejuice. Is that track still open? And they said, well, give me a minute. So they called and they said, listen, Alex Timbers, who I worked on with Here Lies Love, is directing Moulin Rouge in Boston. He's not auditioning anybody else in person. If you get him a tape by Friday morning, we'll see what happens. This is Wednesday. It's 2-show day. So I'm learning the lines. I get in early before Thursday. I put in the video on tape, and they send it up to Alex. And by Monday morning, they're like, good, your next show's up. I tell these stories, and I have to, even as I recount them, I feel like I'm lying. I feel like it's like some strange fantasy. I don't, this is just goes back to like my Julie Andrews love, where it's just like the line, somewhere in my youth or childhood, I must have done something good. I was like, what have I done?
Yeah.
I don't feel like I deserve it. It's very strange journey.
But listening, right? Listening from the outside, not being, listening, putting myself in your shoes in this hour is you've done all, you're in love with the business. You got this thing going, and you're doing your calculus homework, and you're putting in the work, and you're watching, and you're in love with it. And that love, it really does. It manifests in the world. You're talking to people before the curtain goes up. You're talking to the house. You're a human that people want to be around.
Yeah, thanks.
Computer. You're like, you've done the work. The work is you being you. I
think of the theater as long as the theater will have me, I will have it. So I just, just keep calling me, Yeah.
Here, someone says, do you still have Lee Benz? She says, do you still have your Otho audition tape?
Oh yeah, I'm waiting for the right moment to debut that. That is the craziest audition story that replaces all audition stories. I've never had a shorter audition process. I didn't think that it was real that people book things on tape. I thought it was like completely fictitious. I was like, yeah, if they're like in a pinch.
Right.
But maybe that's what they were in, maybe before they got to me. So I feel very lucky about that one. Again, timing, and just being open to, and keeping your ears open to what's happening. Good thing, I read Playbill.com and BroadwayWorld.com like it's the New York Times. I'm scouring this thing like the classifieds.
It is.
They're like, yeah, it's like somebody farted in the wind on Broadway and wants to make it into the musical. I was like, well, let me find out what it's about.
Yeah, east or west? Where did the wind blow?
Yeah.
Incredible. We have a great final question as we wrap up. Roy says, what is it like to create your own version of a well-known character like Otho? Because I feel like you've spent in our journey together, a lot of it has been original or new, or putting your own stamp on something that really hasn't existed. So then what's the opposite, especially coming into the process late in the game?
I mean, you have to watch, if there's some kind of adaptation, I've definitely watched the movie, and Glenn Shaddix played the role of Otho. He was absolutely incredible and iconic. And at that point, you have to steal what you want from him and then create it on your own.
Yeah.
The script of the musical is completely different from the script of the movie, obviously. And, at some point you have to see what the audience is going to expect from you, like just steal the things that is the essence of the character, and then find out how the essence plays through you, and then kind of developing the moments because I can't be Glenn Shaddix. I can't be that Otho. I have to kind of create my own version of it. Right. But the one thing that I did steal from Glenn, I was just like, he just always had this air about him. There was a fabulous air about him that was, you couldn't take that. When he walked into a room, he took up space. And that was important to me. I was like, okay, that's what I'm taking from him. Yeah. I'm not saying any of the lines that he's saying. I don't have his voice. But the thing that I think I can honor Glenn in the role of Otho is that when he walks into the room, he just he sucks all the air out of the room for himself, and I'm just like, that's where I'm going to start. And, hopefully I've created something that will last and people have enjoyed through that show.
And I think, needless to say, I think that is the outcome. People with our gift shop, people would be wearing the black and white, and where they go, they're going up to the winter. The audience reaction was, for as as truncated as the run ends up being, the audience interaction and rabidness about it was pretty incredible to watch.
The fans of both SpongeBob and Beetlejuice, what you all are crazy. You all are insane. I love you to pieces. It's like nothing else I've ever experienced. They made us feel like rock stars and as Broadway performers in a weird way. And without them, we wouldn't have the show that we have, and it fueled us every night. It really did. It just drove the energy through the roof in the audience, and just, us actors are suckers for that. We're like, you give us attention and you're giving us really amazing feedback and energy. We're going to give it right back to you. So those two places to work every night was a sensational party on and off that stage.
Incredible. What a career. I hope you've gotten a chance in this time that we have lots of time to sit and think. I hope you can reminisce on this incredible career you've had thus far, and probably and definitely will continue to have post the insanity of our lives now.
Yes.
But what a journey. From that,
that's a long journey.
Yeah. You've come along.
Tim, are we going to talk about the Beaumont at all? Do we have any time?
Oh my gosh, yes. Let's talk about the Beaumont. Tell why we're here.
No, because I know that's why we're here, and you have to know that I was not lying when I say I have a love affair for each individual theater, and the Beaumont is one of them that I think is one of the most incredible places to work. The King and I was the perfect place to work with. Michael Jurgen, who did the scenic design for the Beaumont, will teach you everything you need to know about that space. And Bart Shear, as a director in residence, basically at Lincoln Center, knowing how to utilize that space, it's so perfect. I used to give the best backstage tour. I'm sure you have it at the King and I. It was very extensive. At the time, people were just like, why are you getting home so late from the show? I was like, well, the show's 3.5 hours long, and then I give a 30-minute to 40-minute tour afterwards. And I just want to show them because it's so exciting to me.
Yeah.
It's 3/4 thrust, the way that they do most of the show, 3/4 thrust with a full proscenium back. And I just, if I don't say anything else, it's so important to say, just share this little thing that Bart used to tell.
Yeah.
It's the perfect place. The Beaumont stage in 3/4 thrust with the extended proscenium is the perfect place to stage a Rodgers and Hammerstein musical. Yeah. Why? Because Rodgers and Hammerstein musicals, the world of the musical itself, South Pacific, King and I, is huge. You have to watch the entire land of Bangkok just explode on the stage. Yeah. And yet the scene work in all the book musicals and the songs are two-handers. Yeah. It's the King and Anna, or it's Tup Tim and Loonta, or it's Anna and Tup Tim. It's just two people at a time, right? So what happens is, in the space in the proscenium, the whole world is moving at all times. There's guards coming in, there's servants coming in, and then on the stage with a 3/4 thrust in the front, you get to watch that intimate two-hander scene. And so you have this beautiful close-up of these two actors. Yeah. I mean, when Kelly and Ken would go at it, you'd be like, this is the most gorgeous thing. And I'm in it. I feel like I'm on the stage with them in a super intimate experience. And yet, if you look beyond them, you see the entire scenic background, and you can paint the political backdrop of what's happening in that moment for this production. And that's all the shows. South Pacific, it's like, you're just getting a meal standing alone here, but you need to know what's happening in the world behind him. And so this amazing stage that is literally not utilized better than anybody by Bart, it does it better than anybody that I know, is so unique to the Beaumont that it's just one of those things. It's a tidbit that I wanted to share.
Yeah. And I know it's perfect because, especially like you think the first Rodgers and Hammerstein, Oklahoma, your favorite, the St. James, when you really look back at those photos of the original production, we hear it's so revolutionary and so, move the art form forward. But if you look, it's like, 2D flats and a backdrop, and there's nothing. Right. And because that stage, in many ways, has been so shallow until Frozen kind of blasted out the wall. But it's, you think if Rodgers and Hammerstein had in the original productions been given a space like Vivian Beaumont as they created, you wonder even how that would have influenced things more.
I mean, it's just the way that the audience is oriented around too, and you're able to see everything from another angle. Another Bart tidbit. This, I own nothing of this. This is all Bart, and if I misquote you, Bart, I'm sorry. But
we'll text him after. And
yeah, please. But what a silly revolutionary acting thing for me, which is, when you get on that 3/4 thrust, if you want to turn around, you know how we kind of like do the cheating, like I'm talking to you now and I never really, he's like, no, he's like, if you need to turn around, you can do a full circle. And the thing is, the angle is supposed to change on the people. Sometimes people will be in a position where they're not seeing the king's face and they're looking directly at Anna, they're looking at his vantage point. And sometimes it'll be the opposite. It doesn't really matter. And I thought that was like, what a revolutionary thing, that people on a stage just walk like human beings. There's no cheating forward. There is no forward, So the staging of that show was just magnificent. I've had a huge love affair with the Beaumont, starting with the light in the Piazza. Like, me before too. That, my first show that I ever saw the Beaumont was Henry IV.
Really?
Henry IV Part 1 and 2. It was I saw the frogs there. It's it's a really cool space. And for nothing else, when they have that 3/4 thrust, if you saw South Pacific or you saw The King and I, underneath it, they're hiding like 1 million orchestra members. It's sick. It's like, who in this time period is going to be able to afford all of those musicians and play those scores like that? I mean, it's just, it's remarkable.
It's a gift. It's a gift. It's sad that that is a rare gift, that we don't get that all the time, but you have to be thankful for the times we do get it, I think. Yeah. Incredible. You're incredible. If we didn't already follow you, is Instagram your mode of transportation on social media?
I am. I'm on Instagram. I'm at Kelvin Moonlow. That's me. I have a defunct Twitter somewhere there. I'm sure I've tweeted about an Oscars at some point in the last decade, but Instagram is where I'm at, where you can find me.
Great. You're incredible. What an incredible journey you've had. I can't wait to see where it goes on the other side of this insanity. I'm glad you're alive. I'm glad you're sane.
Yeah.
Thank you for spending your Saturday with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me, Tim.
You're incredible. Bye, Kelvin.
Bye.
What a light of a human. Gosh, you can just see from his calculus book in the balcony of the St. James, to the onstage, to show. You could just, it's fun to trace the journey of a human who is in love with the art form, and then the art form reciprocates back and provides these opportunities to the seamless flow of the circle of art is a really beautiful thing when it happens. And what a light. You can, I haven't written a show, but I want to hire you in my show that I've never written. Let's go. But what a cool, what a cool journey. And if you haven't seen him on the other side, it sounds like he's probably going to do 8,000 other shows. So make sure you go see him in something, because it's a incredible, really gifted energy. If you follow us at all, Broadway Up Close on Instagram is where our series mostly lives. Of course, it's on our Facebook as well. At Broadway Up Close is the updates on all of us. We have our entire gift shop that I promised I'd tell you about, which is broadwayupclose.com/souvenirs. If you, for being incredible guests that you are, if you put in Broadway 10, that'll get you 10% off any of your orders. And then virtual tours are the other part of my life. So we've been working both in collaboration with Playbill.com, who I'm obsessed with and I love, like Kelvin. I also have way too many playbills in my office. And so working with them, and then working in-house through our own reservation platform, we've been doing virtual tours. And so we have our newest virtual tour that I've been working my little butt off, and we'll continue this weekend until we launch it. It's called the Broadway Bar Crawl. You can find info to book your tickets, broadwayupclose.com/virtual tours. Very easy to remember. And I want to show you our, we just put out the little logo of what, our little green map of life is going to be. And so there's, of course, little Belasco, who's sleeping next to me currently, but there he is in his little lobster bib. And of course, we encourage you, with it being a bar crawl, I don't know that I'll be drinking, probably lots of water, but feel free to grab a beverage and join us. So that's next Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We are offering it through Playbill on Wednesday at 8 p.m. And then on Sunday for a little matinee for our international guests, should you want to join for a matinee. We're calling it 3 p.m. It won't be a matinee in your international time time zone, but there we are. You guys have been incredible. I hope you enjoyed our little talk with Kelvin today. I'm looking at a question. NEL says, what's the latest on when Broadway might reopen? I think it changes every day. I think probably late summer, fall is ambitious and hopefully will be happening, maybe closer to the holidays. I don't really know. I think there's still, the next couple months are going to be the tell-all of how these vaccines go and how things start to open up. Restaurants in New York City are going to 35% from 25%, I believe, next week or the following week. So that's a good sign. We're trending in the right direction. So restaurants, and then stadiums, and then, well, our beautiful 41 Broadway theaters. So soon enough. No timeline, but hopefully soon enough. In the meantime, as I say every day, we are one day closer to Broadway. We start our week 37 on Monday, continuing in our mode of new contemporary theaters. And I hope you'll join us for then. And I'll see you again next Saturday here live with our next Saturday Noon on Broadway guest. One day closer. I love you all. See you again.